Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. On this episode of Thor Talk, Thor faces Glory, who is a pantheon of 10,000 gods in one being. Glory seeks to help wipe out the multiverse, and Thor is what stands in his way on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
Thor: Chaos War No. 1 was written by J.M. DeMatteis and was published in November of 2010. Amatsu-Mikaboshi has proclaimed himself the Chaos King, and he has begun on his quest to wipe out all of reality. He has enslaved all manner of alien gods to help him on this quest, but one of his god servants stands out among the rest. Glory, an entire pantheon of 10,000 violent, bloodthirsty gods in one being. While the other gods were enslaved to serve Mikaboshi, Glory offered its services freely, wishing to see reality be torn asunder. And Mikaboshi delivered as he wiped out 98.76% of the Marvel Multiverse. The Multiverse, as in countless Earths and other realities, possibly including the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Earth. And now the Chaos King has set his sights on the prime Marvel Earth. As the Chaos King has found all the Skyfathers of Earth, he sends his god slaves to deal with Hercules and his allies. Glory attacks Thor, and Hercules tells the god of thunder to hold the line, words that Thor will take to heart as our story begins. The Chaos King was leading an army of enslaved alien gods in a quest to return creation to a state of primal nothing, infinite emptiness, oblivion, and he was right there in the middle of it. A figure out of ancient myth and modern legend, the Thunderer, the Protector. He was battling his way across an other-dimensional sky, facing an enemy beyond comprehension. Not just one god, no. The creature that called itself Glory was the embodiment of an entire pantheon of gods. Vile, twisted, insanely violent. Chaos's other servant gods may have been coerced into joining his cause, but Glory was there because it wanted to be. The god thing's eyes were bright with suffering and death, spite and loathing, and in that moment, what it loathed more than anything was the hammer-wielding warrior who dared oppose it. The god that was 10,000 gods laughed, and the sound of it vibrated across space, assaulting Thor with a wave of psychic toxins that permeated every level of his being, body, mind, and spirit. The Thunder God fell back then, staggered by the attack, but only for a moment. "Glory!" he shouted. "You shall not pass!" Just to speak those words took an effort that would have broken most men, or gods, but he spoke them all the same, and then hurled himself through that toxic ocean of laughter into the belly of the beast. Every thought and feeling, memory and desire shared by the gods of Glory's pantheon took form around Thor. But what he saw wasn't literally there. It was his mind's interpretation of something so fantastically alien that it could never be perceived in its true form. But perceived or not, those thought forms tore at the god of thunder, feasting on him like psychic maggots, eating away at his very soul. I tell you all this as if I was there. I wasn't. I didn't actually see the desperation in Thor's eyes as he whirled his hammer and called forth the winds of 1,000 worlds. I didn't witness the cosmic hurricane that resulted, the decimation of that inner landscape. Didn't hear the piercing howl of pain from an entity that had never known pain. No, I learned about all of this later, so I can only imagine what it was like when the rage of 10,000 god things exploded. When Glory reached out and crushed Thor in its massive hand, demanding his surrender. "Never!" the Thunder God roared. "I will spit my defiance at you with my last breath." Glory roared back, and its roar became a swarm of insects that ate through flesh, eyes, blood, and bones, burrowing into his psyche, collapsing his sanity.
"Surrender now!"
Glory said, in wordless words, with voiceless voice.
And we will give you something resembling a merciful death. But fight on, and you will not die as a god, but as a writhing, wailing, mad thing.
And that's how he would have died, then and there, had it not been for the spark. The Thunder God didn't understand whether this sudden surge of strength came from somewhere outside himself or deep within. He only knew that it gave him the will to fight on when there was no will left in him. Glory sensed it too, unleashing a torrent of cosmic fire that contained the totality of its power, sending him plummeting across worlds and time, heavens and hells in an attempt to stamp out that spark. But the spark had become a cosmic fire of its own there in the Thunder God's heart. Thor knew that Glory and the other mad gods who served Mikaboshi, King of Chaos, would soon have the Earth in their diseased hands. Earth, the world he treasured, loved more than any. Humankind had looked to him for help since the first eyes had been raised to the skies, since the first words of supplication had been formed. He'd never failed those he'd sworn to protect. He wouldn't fail them now. His entire body trembling from the effort, Thor raised Mjolnir high, absorbing Glory's fire into the hammer, channeling it through his guardian metal, and straight back into Glory's black soul. A quantum tsunami tore through 10,000 gods and through reality itself. Thor felt his being unraveling, mind, body, psyche, soul, torn to shreds as his personal identity, his very sense of self, burned up in conflagration. Thor, what was left of Thor, screamed and died and was reborn. Thor successfully drove back Glory, but the effort left him severely weakened. He turned into Donald Blake and had no memory of who he was for quite some time. But for Glory, it was much worse. It was able to come back, but only through the help of the Chaos King. But even an abstract being like the Chaos King, who is on the brink of wiping out an entire multiverse, can only do so much. Glory was a shadow of its former self. Thor would rally against this shadow of former glory with help from a woman named Becca Steintart. But that is a story for another day. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. If you want to keep up with and support Thor Talk, simply subscribe. You can also support Thor Talk on Patreon at patreon.com/ThorTalk. Once again, I'd like to formally state that all art and video is owned by its respective companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where
you'll be holding